if you're the kind of person who loves dissecting a text to find the hidden gears turning inside a brilliant metaphor, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving into an intense, totally surreal literary escape story that's hidden right in plain sight. We are unlocking Adrienne Rich's famous poem, The Trees, and we're going to use the clues scattered throughout our source material to really guide this analysis. So let's jump right in. Right before the poem even kicks off, we get hit with this seemingly impossible, paradoxical question. Can there be a forest without trees? It immediately asks us to locate the trees in this text and figure out exactly where they're going. It's a great hook, right? It establishes this central mystery we're going to solve together today because we aren't just reading a nice little poem about nature. We are tracking a very specific, highly unusual movement. So the poem opens with a completely bizarre reality. These trees aren't just your average, everyday potted plants. They are an indoor woodland that has simply decided it's had enough and it is actively packing up to leave for the empty forest outside. It's this beautifully surreal image of a literal botanical jailbreak. Okay, but what does an empty forest actually mean? Well, the poem lays it out for us. An empty forest lacks the very architecture of life. Without trees, no bird can sit, no insect can hide. And then there's this incredibly evocative line. No sun bury its feet in shadow. I really want you to visualize what that looks like for a second. The sun's rays, its feet, hitting the bare earth unshielded, completely without the cool, dappled relief of leafy shadows. The forest outside has just been empty, waiting. So how exactly are they leaving? Let me tell you, it is not a peaceful stroll. To understand the sheer physical effort involved here, we have to look really closely at Rich's word choices. The trees are trying to disengage, meaning to physically separate themselves, and they strain, which means they're making immense, labored efforts to move. The poet leans heavily into these sensory, labor-intensive words to focus our attention on the intense physical struggle of this escape. This isn't just some gentle spring growth. It is a forceful, painful extraction. Just look at the verbs here. They're so active and forceful, building all this tension around a frantic breakout attempt. The roots work all night to disengage from the veranda floor. The leaves strain against the glass window panes. The small twigs are literally stiff with exertion, and the long cramped boughs are shuffling under the roof. It's a highly coordinated, exhausting, full-body rebellion by the flora against the actual architecture of the house. You know what makes this whole extraction so compelling? It's the simile Rich uses to describe it. She compares the literal action of those long, cramped boughs shuffling under the roof to newly discharged patients, half-dazed, moving to clinic doors. Just think about that comparison for a moment. These trees aren't just plants anymore. They're like people recovering from a sickness, waking up from this suppressed state and stumbling toward the exit, completely desperate for fresh air and healing. It casts the house not just as a container, but almost as a hospital or a place of strict confinement. But while this violent, incredibly loud struggle is happening all around, what's the speaker of the poem up to? She tells us, I sit inside, doors open to the veranda, writing long letters. The contrast here is just staggering. You have this massive botanical uprising going on, roots are cracking the floorboards, leaves are smashing against the glass, and our narrator is just sitting there quietly, totally detached, writing letters. And right here is where the mystery really deepens. Because in these long letters she's writing, she notes that she will scarcely mention the departure of the forest from the house. Why the silence? I mean, a massive, surreal, earth-shattering event is happening right in front of her, practically tearing the house down, and she is actively choosing to omit it from her correspondence. It begs us to ask, what is she actually hiding? Or perhaps, what is she protecting? But hold on, before we try to answer that, the speaker reminds us she can't just completely ignore what's happening, because her senses are absolutely overwhelmed. The room is being invaded by the smell of lichen. You know, those crusty, bushy growths of fungus and algae you see on wild tree trunks? Rich uses this to emphasize a sensory invasion. She writes that the smell of leaves and lichen still reaches like a voice into the rooms. Even if she actively refuses to write about it, the wildness of these escaping trees is calling out to her. It's undeniable. As we push toward the poem's conclusion, you can literally feel the tension winding tighter and tighter. The roots have been working, the leaves are straining, the smell is filling the room, and the night wind is rushing in to meet the escaping trees. We have reached the physical climax of this desperate escape out into the night. And then we get this. Just 5 simple words. Listen, the glass is breaking. It is such a brilliant, sharp pivot. The quiet detachment of the letter writer is shattered at the exact same moment the physical boundary of the house is shattered. The trees have finally breached the perimeter. They are stumbling forward into the night. Now notice how the description of the moon dramatically shifts here. Before the escape, the narrator notes, "The whole moon shines in a sky still open." But after that glass breaks and the trees burst outside, the moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Now, obviously, the moon itself didn't break. What caused this striking imagery is the sudden presence of this massive oak tree blocking the sky. Its canopy of branches fractures the moonlight, making it look exactly like a shattered mirror caught in its leaves. The trees have finally reclaimed their rightful place, and in doing so, they've physically changed how the world looks. So, we've tracked these trees from the veranda, through the shattered glass, and out into the night to catch the broken moon in their branches. But what's the real meaning behind this botanical jailbreak? I mean, is it really just a fantasy about houseplants? To unlock this central metaphor, we need to look at a crucial clue provided right at the very end of our source material. Well, a quick look at the author's background gives us a massive clue. Adrienne Rich was born in 1929. She authored nearly 20 volumes of poetry, and she's widely recognized as a feminist and a radical poet. And honestly, this is the key that unlocks the whole text. When we read this poem through the lens of a radical feminist author writing in the mid-20th century, the trees, confined inside this house, become a powerful metaphor for women confined to domestic spaces. The painful, strained half-day's effort to break out of the house into the open world isn't about gardening at all. It's an explainer of domestic confinement and liberation. The trees are breaking the glass, quite literally a glass ceiling, or window in this case, to reclaim their space in the wild, natural world. Which, of course, brings us right back to that strange silence from our speaker. If this is a metaphor for a massive social upheaval, for liberation from domestic confines, why does the narrator scarcely mention it in her letters? Why sit quietly while the entire house is torn apart by this uprising? And this leaves us with a really lingering provocation to end on. Could it be that we are often silent about important happenings that are so unexpected that they actually embarrass us? It's a pretty profound question. Are we so conditioned to the status quo, to the trees staying quietly in their indoor pots, that when a massive, necessary, and violent shift toward freedom actually happens, society's first reaction is just awkward silence? Rich's poem challenges us to look at the structures we're confined in, to listen for the breaking glass, and most importantly, to ask ourselves why we might choose to stay silent when the forest finally decides to move. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning what you read.